Everyone dreams of living an uncommon life, and the best asset you have to achieve your dreams is you. Welcome to the Uncommon Wealth Podcast. We're going to introduce you to people who are living uncommonly. We're also going to give you some tools and strategies for building wealth and for pursuing an uncommon path that is uniquely right for you.
Hello and welcome everybody to another episode of the Uncommon Wealth Podcast, where I'm your host, Phillip Ramsey. Today, I am making good on my promise to talk about my whole career path. How did we get to here? Here's why it's important in the old uncommon wealth space. It's because I feel like we all have experiences that sometimes we glance over or we don't think they're as important as others, but we all have a story. We all have a position where we're at today. And I feel like, and this is me, I feel like God has orchestrated this whole thing. And so for me, it's really important for me to go back and kind of talk about my story and just kind of for me to see all the ways that God has blessed me to the path where I'm at now. Now, that might not be your reason to do it, but I do think that you can get a lot of insight from doing this exercise. I challenged in the simple step before this, I challenged that you would go back and you would write this out. What are your peaks? What are your valleys in your life? And does that help you get some direction moving forward? So let's talk through this. I will start quickly. And then I will go through, I don't know. I might not go quickly. I might take it a little bit longer just because there's some stories here that I think are super important. So let me start back in college for me. Now, I could gone way further back, and I think I even challenged everyone to do that in the simple step. But for me, I'm just going to start right out of college. So 2004, graduated from University of Northern Iowa. I was a Panther, and I had no idea what I wanted to do. In fact, I had no idea what I wanted my major to be until sophomore year, they're like, you have to declare a major. And I was like, okay, what major gets me out of here the quickest? And found out general studies was going to be what I was going to do, which you had to take 3 of the colleges, micro colleges, and then you have to kind of get 3 minors almost to get a general studies major. These are my 3 minors, or 3 expertise of study. It was sports, education, and what was the third? Oh, business. Those were the 3. And then I had a minor in leadership, which I loved, candidly. If there was a major of leadership, I would have done it. But that was my minor. And then my 3 areas of emphasis in my general studies were business, education, and sports. Sports directing, I think it was. Anyway, so there it was. I get out of college, got out in 4 years, which, dicey. But I had to do an internship for my leadership minor. So I went to my old principal in high school, and I graduated from Dowling Catholic. I'm not Catholic, but I graduated from Dowling. So I went back to the principal, and I was like, listen, you have 3 of the areas that I just studied for the last 4 years. You have a education component. You have business, right? Because it's a private school. You also have sports. And so all these things kind of correlate to what I was working on. So I was like, is there a way that I can do my internship with you? And he was like, Phillip, that sounds great. Let's figure out an internship for you. We don't really have one, but let's go ahead and start that out. So we started, and all my internship was sitting in an office, observing leadership, observing meetings, maybe doing some Excel spreadsheets, whatever they wanted me to do, maybe notes from a meeting, but I got to observe. I loved it. The guy that I did my internship with, the principal at the time, was called Jim Dottle, Dr. Jim Dottle. He's a still super close friend of mine. It was awesome. And throughout that whole time, I got a good relationship with him. I helped him through some bigger projects, just basically just kind of laughing about things and helping him out when I could, but a lot of times just observing. Anyway, so at the end of that, something really cool happened. So he brought me into his office. He was like, Phillip, he's like, now you're almost done with this internship. It went really well. But what I want to do is gift you something called networking. And he didn't say this, but he's like, I want to do a better job of helping you kind of launch out into the real world. So he's like, what we're going to do is he's like, I'm going to pool all the students and what their parents do. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go talk to some people that you really feel like could be a good fit for you and your career. Sweet. So when the principal of your private school calls you, I'm sure as a parent, you'd be like, yeah, what can I do to help? So Jim Dottle called a couple of these people. Here was the three people that he called for me. It was pharmaceuticals. So pharmaceutical sales, which was Deanne Howard. There was a company, Voya at the time, or ING. I can't remember which one it was. But so finance. So there's that. Then there was ITA Group, which they were kind of into business travel incentive things. And then there was Meredith Corporation. So if you know Meredith Corporation, Better Homes and Gardens, magazines, things like that. So those were the four people that we went out and we like physically sat down in front of them. They told us about the company. Then Jim kind of talked to them about me. It was awesome. You guys, the best thing that I could have thought of when I'm thinking about going to get a new career is have your basically employer tell him like, this is what he's good at. He's awesome. And he also has some emphasis in your students or your child's life. So you just like, listen. So we venture out into the real world. Let's start with, I think we start with Voya. So ING might have been at the time. And I remember sitting there like, there's no way I'm doing finances. Like I never studied this. This is all foreign language to me. We're not doing that. So that was pretty much quickly dismissed. Oh, it's so funny to look back. So the next one we went is Deanne Howard at Abbott Laboratories. And I loved it. I was like, listen, get me a job here. I'll do it. And she was like, yeah, you have no experience. That isn't going to happen. So there it went. Then we went to Meredith Corporation. And we talked to like the vice president or the president at the time. So pretty big up in the company. And he was talking, and it was like Charlie Brown's parents talking, or like the teacher talking, like he talking about picturing, like, or taking pictures of food and things that I'm like, that is not me. Or writing about food, like it's not me. Or gardens, like that's just. So I dismissed that pretty quick, and then we went to ITA Group, and we talked to a guy named Tom Mahoney, and he had a student at Dowling, and so we went there, hung out, and I remember like just being enamored with this guy. He was cool. He was dressed nice. It was a nice company. And he was like, listen, we are in the business of knowing people. We know how to incentivize them. We know how to get them motivated. We just know people. And I'm like, I like people. This is a great fit. So after our talk, I told Tom, I was like, give me the worst job here. And he's like, I'm sorry, what? I was like, I want the worst job here. So when I am sitting where you're sitting someday, I can tell that person that just got hired, I've done that job and it's important. So if it's janitor, give me the janitor job. If it's customer service, give me the customer service job. Okay. So he gets me a customer service job. That's the one I kind of launch into right out of college after my internship, customer service. Guys, and he was like, listen, you just have to stay there a year, then you can be promoted out of that department and you can go into a different kind of field, and then you can kind of work your way up to then management, and then at some point maybe where I'm sitting, right? It's a pretty long career path, but here we go. So I launch into customer service. I remember one of my directors or like supervisor, I think his name was Tom. And I think I had a supervisor at that point named Tammy, and he was kind of the Tammy's boss. I don't know. It's all a whirlwind. But here's what I remember. About maybe 2 months after I was working, and I remember like I even had like a chain of paper that would get me out to my year so then I could go to the next job. Okay. So I like had the next thing on my mind very clearly, because I'll never forget it. So Tom calls me in his office like, hey man, what's going on? And I'm doing the customer service thing. I'm talking to people. That's great. But my eyes are not focused on the job. I'm thinking about something else. And he said, never forget it. Phillip, we're going to have to let you go. And I'm like, I'm sorry, what? Like, no, you don't understand. My career path is actually to be the president and CEO someday. And so he's like, nope, it's not going to work out, because he's like, you're so focused on the next phase that you're completely discrediting this job. And, like you're not even being present here. And I was like, just rocked to my core. Like my first job out of college, like basically going to get fired from. And I was like, listen, man, like totally get it. Thanks for the feedback. I can do better. Like, so give me another job opportunity. So I think he's like, listen, let's just see how it goes for the next 2 weeks. I don't know, but not looking great. I remember going home that day and like, I had a choice, right? We all have choices. And I thought I can either just bag it up, walk out, no problem. Or I can lean into this. Like, this is not the person I am. This is not leadership at all. And I've completely squandered the opportunity that ITA Group and Tom Mahoney has given to me. Like, that's not going to happen. So I went home, and every person in my department I listened to, I'm not friends with them because I was going to move on, right? But I knew them and I've heard them. I listened to them, but I knew more than I thought. I said I know more than I let on, and that they understood that I knew of them. So when people looked at Phillip, they were like, "Oh yeah, young guy. He doesn't know me. I'm sure he's a fine guy, but he's looking to be promoted, and he's discrediting my job." And I wasn't really saying that, but my actions were saying that. So I went home, and then I started writing down everything I knew about each person. Okay, and then I had. Before this whole college thing, I was a manager at a skating rink, or assistant manager to a skating rink. One of my favorite jobs. Loved it. But you know how you had vending machines and they had all these things. There was things back then called homies. They were just little dolls, and they just had, like, they were cool. I still had those, and I don't know why I had them, or I don't know why I kept them, but I remembered those homies when I was writing these, like, encouraging notes of things that I know about my customer service team around me. And I remember getting those homies out, and each one of them correlated with, like, a person. So one person was very faith-filled, and there was a homie that was like kind of like kneeling down by a cross. So I wrote about that. That was her homie. She got that. Her name was Mana. I'll never forget it. Then we had another person who was a huge cheerleader. Okay. Her name was Denise. Like, she was always encouraging people. So she got the homie that had cheerleading. You know, you get it. You get the point. Anyway, so I had probably 6 or 7 or 8 people on my team that all got homies. And the next morning, I went in early, and I gave each one of their homies and a little card, you know, handwritten card about what I see in them, the gifts I see, and, you know, the value that they bring. And that's what everyone got. So I come back my next day after the day that Tom was like, "Hey, we're going to let you go." Totally different vibe for me too. Like, I was like locked in, like, I've got to be a good steward of the circumstance and the opportunity that I have, that Tom Mahoney believed in me. Right. So it was going great. I'm telling you what, I was the best customer service. Like, it was a whole nother Phillip, all because Tom was brave enough to be like, "Hey man, this isn't going to work," and gave me another shot. So I totally value that. If that wouldn't happen, I never would have probably be who I am today. So everybody, I think, was engaged at that point, because I believe the customer service rep, and I still do, is such a valuable role, because it's your first line of defense that people have with your company. Okay. So things started looking a little bit different for me. Like, my perspective started changing about customer service role, and I was ready to rock. So about 2 months of that go by, and I remember but I didn't get fired, for the record. Okay. Tom was like, "Okay, this is a whole different deal. I'm engaging with my team." And then I'm looking at, like, what opportunities can I take on? Right. So I'll never forget this. So the next day I come, or I should say 2 months later, I come into office, and there is something wrong. Like, you can just tell people are like big eyes, talking about things, you know, not loudly, and Tom is like not running around, but he's frantic, I would say. And I'm like, "What's going on?" And Tom's like, "Hey, we're going to have a team meeting at 9. We need everyone there." So come to find out, one of our clients was a big sales client. It was Mitsubishi, like not the cars, but they were selling TVs at the time. Well, their incentive website fritzed out, and they were selling big screen TVs for $1, and like all these other things, incentive little trinkets that you could get, but nice stuff. But they were selling it, like the website crashed out, and people got on there and then started telling people about it in the middle of the night about how you can get big screen TV for $6. And they bought a whole bunch of stuff. Obviously, that's not what happened. That's not what we wanted to have happen, but it just happened. Okay. So Tom is telling us all about how this kind of website fritzed out, and all these salesmen went on there and started, because it's a business incentive company, right? ITA Group. And they do a lot of business travel. So if you do like amazing at your job, sales job, they might send you out to Hawaii. And they travel all that, or they do all the travel, they organize all that stuff, they make sure that you're there safe, make sure you have a good time, and fly you back. That's what their job is. Well, obviously some part of it is like, hey, you're a good salesman, you can get some bucks to go on these websites and spend money. Like I said, it fritzed out. So Tom, next voice, says, we're going to need somebody to call these people and like tell them, like what's going on, and basically tell them that what they just bought, you can't buy it for. And immediately I was like, that's me. Like, I'll call. And he was like, you're joking, right? And I was like, no, like I would love to. Like, and there's something about me in conflict that let's just talk through it and see if we can get through it. If not, let's figure it out. So at the end of that, Tom was like, okay, you got the job, buddy. Like, good luck. Here's the numbers. I think there was probably 50 or 60. And he's like, the only thing we can give you is like a $50 gift card. If they're like upset, you can be like, hey, we're going to send you a $50 gift card to say sorry, but you're not going to get those 6 TVs, big screen TVs for $17, that stuff. So there I go. I start calling people. You guys, that was one of my favorite times in my career, was calling these people. And some of them were like totally understanding. Hey, that happens. No problem. I was so happy to give those people $50. The other side of the spectrum was like, oh no, you can't do this to me. Like, I'm going to sue you, all these things. And like, I remember saying like, man, have you never made any mistakes? Like, truly, like, when's the last time you made a mistake? And then somebody's trying to capitalize on that mistake. Like, not only throwing, salt in your wound, but like, it's just exasperating. So I just told him, listen, you're not getting anything, man. Like, you can do whatever you want, but at the end of the day, like, people mess up, websites go down, this stuff happens. I was way more reluctant to give them the $50 gift card. I'll just tell you that. So I get through my 50 or 60 calls within like 2 or 3 days. Like, it wasn't just a whole 1-day deal because these calls could last, 5-10 minutes each. And so it was a long couple days, but I get through it. And after that, I think Tom was then kind of like a believer, like, okay, you can write cards all you want, but really, have you changed? And I think even my attitude was like, hey, how can I lead in this season well? Okay, so I'll try to make this faster, but I think they're all kind of interrelated. So we had a big company at ITA Group come, and there was a choice that he had to make between us and our competitor. It was a big company, it was a big account. And so ITA Group, I think very wisely said, hey, let's try to impress this guy, this exec that's coming in to try to win the business. Sounds great. So what we're going to do is we're going to try to get each department to get a representation of the department by bringing some person. So every person has a person that, I guess, represents their department, and all of them are going to go talk to this exec. And Tom came to me and it's like, hey, would you like to be our representative for customer service to go to this, this meeting with this big exec from this big company that's going to either choose us or the other company? And I was like, I'd be honored. Let me do this. And he's like, here's the deal. You don't have to talk. In fact, we don't want you to talk. You just smile and you just shake hands if you need to and just smile and just represent our company and our department well. Okay, sounds good. So I go up there. I get my, oversized suit on, 3 days later or whatever, go up to the boardroom. I'll never forget it. It's Tom Mahoney. Remember, we know him. A guy that was running the company. His name was Steve Chapman. Still love Steve Chapman to this day. Still love Tom Mahoney. And all these other department heads that were kind of representing their department. Great. And then Phillip, little me, and then this exec from this other company. And I remember being just kind of like, I can't believe I'm in this room, straight out of college, maybe 6 months out of college, and in this room and just kind of looking around. And this guy's talking about his company and their values and what's important to them. And at the end of the spiel, probably 25 minutes, he goes, does anybody have any questions? And nobody said anything. 3 seconds go by. Nobody says anything. You guys know where this is going, right? And so sure enough, I raised my hand like, I got a question. And you guys, Tom, my supervisor, was in that meeting. Not Tom Mahoney, but Tom, my supervisor. And I remember him looking at me like, you had one job, one stinking job, Phillip, and you can't even do that. And so this is my question I ask him. I was like, hey, what do you like about our company that we do better than the other company? Like, that's what I want to know. Because if he said, well, you make really good coffee, then like, get this guy more coffee. Like, let's close this deal and let's go. Okay, so he answers the question, and then the meeting's over because like no one really had any more questions. So I go back downstairs, and my supervisor, and then my supervisor, and then the manager Tom, all go in the room, and I was like, well, there we go. Like there's strike two, Phillip's out. So next day I get back to the office, and I have a voicemail on my phone. You know how they had like a little light up so you know that you have a voicemail? Yeah. So I click it, and it's Steve Chapman, the CEO of the company. And he said, hey, Phillip, I just want to leave you a quick message. Like when you have time today, can you come up to my office? And so I was like, yeah, I can do that. So I walk into my supervisor's office or manager's office, Tom. It's like, hey, Steve just called me. He wants me to go upstairs. And he was like, hey, I think you should just call him. And I was like, hey, when the CEO tells you to come to his office, you go to his office. There's no around that. So I go up to his office, and Steve Chapman's like, hey, come in, go ahead and shut the door. And he's like, hey, I wanted to tell you some good news. He's like, we got the business. We got the business of this guy. He's like, we took him out to eat last night, and we got the business. I was like, well, congratulations. And he's like, do you want to know why we got the business? And I was like, sure. What happened? He's like, because a customer service rep cared enough to ask why. And I was like, huh, really? He's like, yeah. He's like, I just wanted to thank you. And like, you really represented our company well. And I just wanted to thank you. So moving forward, Tom and I were buddies. Like we were friends. And I think Tom, my supervisor, he was fine. But yeah, Steve Chapman and I were best friends. Like I would see him in the hall. We would talk. Now I'm going to say this because it sounds great. Steve Chapman was best friends with everybody in that company. He knew your name. He knew your family. Like he was one of the best leaders I've ever been under. But he and I were friends at that point. So come about a year, 6 months more, I get promoted. I get promoted upstairs, and now I'm a little bit more on the hands-on incentive. How do you incentivize these companies, and how do you take them out on a trip? How do you make sure things go well? I was like an assistant manager, if you will. And my first opportunity came when GSK, or it was a pharmaceutical company, came out with a new pharmaceutical drug. And they flew all the reps out to California, and they wined and dined them. They got to show them about the new drug and rah, and do the deal. There was a lot of breakouts because they were talking about sales strategies that they were going to do in their little team. It was pretty sweet. But I got the opportunity to go. And when you do that, because it's such a big company and there's so many attendees attending, there's a lot of people called travel directors that also go to that location, and they help make sure everything runs smoothly. I was not a travel director. I was more of like the home base, the headquarters coming out to the location and making sure everything was smooth. And I wasn't even in charge. Actually, the person that was in charge, the program manager, was in charge. I was kind of like her right-hand man. And if I'm being honest, like I loved it. All I did was, I think one time I was like a pedometer back then. It was 13 miles. I walked around this hotel. I never really saw California because I was just walking around the hotel. And there was a couple of situations. It felt like this is what the leadership that I wanted to be. And it was just servant-hearted leadership. How do I be more of a servant here to all the people that are here? Do you need more water? And how can I be a servant to the travel directors? What do they need? Hey, you sit there, I'll go get it. Like you just keep doing your deal. You need water, I'm there. And so really had a good experience. So on the way back to, I think it was Chicago. So LAX to Chicago and then Chicago to Des Moines. On my way back to Chicago, I sat next to a guy that had a really big fluffy Target from the department store, retail store, bag. And he's like, hey, don't make fun of me, man. I just came from the national sales conference for Target. He's like, it was great. And he's like, what do you do? And so I was pretty hyped up at the time. By that time, I was probably 22, 23 maybe. And he was telling me all the leadership kind of opportunities that Target has. And I was telling about the things I was learning. And by the time we touched down at O'Hare, he said, what does it take for you to work for me in Target? And I'm like, nothing. Like, I love my company. I love where it's going. I'm going to be the president and CEO at some point, Phillip's aspirations. And he's like, no. But like, what would it take? Like financially, what would it take? And I put out a number that was like astronomical to me, but turned out to be not to him. The amount was $40,000. If you want to know, I was like, $40,000 would make me, change, which looking back, times were different. And he said, I'll have somebody call you Monday. So sure enough, my phone rings on Monday, and there's this recruiter from Target who wants me to come as be an exec on the Target team. And I didn't know what to do. So I did the only thing I knew what to do is just go ask for help. So I went to Steve Chapman's office and I asked him, I was like, hey, here's what happened. I wasn't looking for an opportunity. It just kind of landed on my lap. And what do you think I should do? And Steve Chapman said, I think you should take it, Phillip. And I was like, really? Didn't think that was going to come out of your mouth. And he's like, you know what? He's like, there's a lot of people here in this company. He's just a smaller company that is intimidated by people who have really good leadership and big aspirations to help and lead. So he's like, it's going to take a long time for you to get to this place where I know you can be and you want to be. And so the best way to do this is probably move out of the company, get your experience, and then move back into the company. And I thought that was so wise and also shocking, if I'm being honest. So I called him back and I said, okay, I'm in. And so for the next 2 years, I was a Target exec, they call them, and I was doing the deal. My store was up in Ames, Iowa, and then they have different departments of that store, but immediately I had just a weird feeling about the whole company, but I got hired to replace somebody else in Hardlines, I think it was called. So basically everything except for clothes. And I was coming in to replace him, and they were going to try to fire him, but then he had to train me in order to do it. And so it was like, this is weird. Also, how long you've been doing this? And you've been doing it for like 6 years or something. So pretty long. And then there was people underneath him that had been there for over 15 years, like a long time. And they weren't managers yet. And the reason why they weren't managers is because they didn't have their college degree. So I was like, this is weird. Like, the people who have experience aren't really in charge. And I'm supposed to be in charge of somebody that's like, I'm replacing. Like, there was just it's a weird feel. Got through that. It was about, I forgot a huge component to this. Before I left ITA Group, I called Deanne Howard, which was my Abbott Laboratories contact that I met with Jim Dottle at Dowling. And I said, hey, I'm about ready to make a career change. Is there any openings in pharmaceuticals? And she goes, Phillip, I remember you. Thanks for reaching out, but we don't have any yet. Okay, great. So that's when I decided to go to Target. Okay, so the next 2.5 years I was with Target. In fact, and I'm glad I have that experience, but looking back, like, I really do call managing others is like babysitting. That's just not my deal. Like, managing and leading are two different things. Just because you're a manager does not make you a leader. And a good leader doesn't always have to manage. Like, that's the part where I have to probably do better at, but I just don't like to manage people and babysit. Like, either you're going to be here or you're not. I got promoted a little bit in Target. And then I got to do some more like reviews, at the end of the year reviews, which I hate annual reviews. Still to this day, I hate them because everyone hates them. Even the people that are getting the reviews are hating them. So I try to do a good job of like encouraging people and like, hey, this is the skills I think that you have, or this is what I see. This is how you can empower you to make Target better. And I get a call back for the HRs like, you can't give this to people. Like, that's too encouraging. And you got to like knock them down and like not give them as much of a raise. Like, if you give them this, you have to give them like this much raise. You can only give them that much raise. So you can't have that. Like, I was like, this is a mess. So what I ended up doing was giving them the write-up that they wanted me to get. And then I would give them the actual write-up that I did. Like, hey, this is what I have to give you, but this is what I actually see. Anyway, so 2.5 years later, I get two and a quarter. So 2 years and a couple, like 3 months, I get a new boss. So now a new store manager, and he wasn't from Target, but he ended up calling me in his office. He's like, hey, Phillip, he's like, you're working too hard out there. And I was like, okay, thanks. Like, I don't know what to say here. He's like, yeah, you don't have to do that. He's like, you just work while people are watching. And then when they're not watching, you just kind of like, you can relax. And I was like, we're going to have a problem here, aren't we, Ian? And that didn't go well. So I called Deanne Howard after that meeting that I had with Ian, and I was like, it's time. Like, I'm coming over. I'm going to be a pharmaceutical rep. And you know what she said? All right, sounds good. That's what I needed to hear. Like, she was just waiting for me to be like, no, this is the job. I can do this. And she was so good, you guys. She would tell me like, hey, here's the truth. She's like, pharmaceutical reps, really nobody likes you. You're at the bottom of the totem pole. It's lonely. You drive all the time for 2-minute conversations. She was like, it's a tough job. And I was like, yeah, I want that. Give me that. And this was before I was married. So I should say I was at Target before I was married. Erin and I started dating. That's a whole nother story, a whole nother podcast, but we started dating. She lived in Florida at the time. And so I started going down this path of being a pharmaceutical rep at Abbott Laboratories. And so before she said yes, she was like, Phillip, you got to go interview because I can't interview you. Like, I'm the reason why you're going to, like you knew about the job. Like, for HR purposes, you got to interview with somebody else. So she's like, you're going to work with Mark. That was actually his name. Mark Johnson. Actually, he's actually passed away. Great guy of cancer. Lived in Omaha, but he came in and she said, this is a sales job, Phillip. So you have to close him. And I'm like, okay, how do I do that? And she goes, yeah, I can tell you how I close, but that's not how you close. Like, you need to close like you close. You got to figure that out. And you have to do it before the interview. So, all right. So I really want this job. Target is not great at this point. Like, I'm sure they're going to hire somebody to replace me, just how it works. And so sure enough, I go into this interview with Mark, and it was in a hotel. It's in a hotel. I think it was in Iowa City area. And I go in and I shake his hand, and immediately, like, I could just tell, like, this guy's cool. We hit it off. He has all these questions. I have all these answers because it's me. And we get to the end, and I'm like, oh, here we go. I got to do it. I got to close. And so he goes, all right, tell me, like, I was like, well, what's the next steps here? And he's like, well, the, top 2 go to the next round. And then that's, you get to meet, we're going to go to the next round. And I was like, well, how many people are you interviewing? And he was like, well, we have 30 people that we've initially reached out to. Of those 30 people, 22, I think, came to do the in-person interview. And I was like, yeah, that's good. That's good. How do I rank up? Like, stack rank me here. And, like, give me some feedback. Like, I want to be the best. You got to give me the feedback. Like, what could I do better? He's like, you really couldn't do any better. Like, he's like, you really did good. And I was like, okay, am I going to the next round? He's like, well, I can't really tell you that. And I was like, no, Mark, like, if I've done good, like, it sounds like I should just go to the next round. Like, and this is where my competitive nature and, like, my sales, I guess, kind of combined, because I wasn't trying to sell and I wasn't trying to close, but by golly, I wanted to know, if I'm not the best, why am I not the best? So then I could be the best later. And at the end, like, probably I asked him like twice or 3 times. He's like, man, you got the one of the 2. Like, you're going to the next round, man. And I was like, thank you. Like, that's sweet, So sure enough, he hired me, and I was a pharmaceutical rep for 3 years. It was awesome. And also the exact same thing that Deanne told me about. It was those things too, but she was just so upfront that I kind of knew what I was getting into. So it wasn't as lonely as she said it was. The doctors, she was right, didn't really want to talk to me, but I should say this, because in pharmaceuticals, and I don't know how it is now, but back then, so that was probably 18 years ago, you had to do this thing called an at-home study. And that at-home study was 2 weeks. That 2 weeks, you had to study for a test. And then at the end of that 2 weeks, you'd take a test. You had to get 90% or better. If you guys know me, you know that, like, 90% or better is, like, unbelievable. Like, I haven't really got a lot of 90s ever in my life. But then to try to think, like, I need this for my job to keep it, like, that's a whole nother level of stress. On top of that, 2 weeks, remember, at-home study. After 1 week, Erin and I get married. So the pre-week, right before you get married, I was supposed to be studying. There's a lot going on. You're going to get married. And then after we get married, I have another week to study. We go on our honeymoon the week after we get married. So for the 2 weeks of at-home study, I'm prepping for a wedding, getting married, and then traveling to my honeymoon, to this day, like I always say, like I owe Aaron another honeymoon, because that first one was like, I was so disconnected. I was stressed about this test that I had to get 90% or better, all the things. Like I was nervous. And so I was studying as much as I could, but also like, okay, let's go to the pool, but like I got to read this, and like I'm not very confident in my test taking abilities anyway, but she was so gracious, let me do it. I get home, take this test, and I pass this test. I think I got like 91, barely, but by golly, I have a job. And then you have to cart yourself off to Chicago, because that's where Abbott Laboratories is headquartered at the time. And for like a 3 months intensive, like, we're going to teach you the disease state, we're going to teach you the drugs, we're going to teach you all, but 3 months. So, you know, like when you go around in a new thing of a new sales thing, everyone's trying to get to know each other and like, okay, tell us a little bit about yourself. Mine was, I just got married a week ago and I just got back from my honeymoon, and now I'm here with you guys for the next 3 months. Wild. And yet Erin was still faithful. She still loved me. She was so gracious, super supportive, and just had a great time. Still to this day, have friends. Mark Johnson still was friends with him. Deanne Howard was still touching base. Just, how are you doing? And then all the people that I met, it was great. Stayed there for 3 years. And over those 3 years, there was a lot happening with insurance and generics. That was all happening. Like, we couldn't give a piece of paper out or a pen, but they could incentivize doctors to sell the $4 drugs. It was a tough environment. And if I'm being honest, it was another way that I got to refine my sales tactic and how I sold. Because after that 3 months intensive study or like training, I remember showing up the first day out of my, training, and I go talk to my first doctor. And I'll never forget this. I go up, I say, show up and throw up. I threw up all the stuff that I was learning, all the things that he needed to know. And it was probably 45 seconds of just me talking. At the end of that, he goes, that's what they're teaching you. All right, where do you need me to sign? Like, he didn't listen to much I was saying. And I remember like, wait, that's what they're teaching me? Like, that didn't go well. I thought there was gonna be a little bit more dialogue here. There wasn't. So the next doctor I go to, this is the second doctor I go to. This was kind of what I said. I was like, hey, this is what they're teaching me. What are you seeing? He talked for 15 minutes. Like, hey, this is what I'm seeing. This is the disease state. This is how you can help. This is how, and it completely changed my closing, because now I just need to serve people. I need to understand from your perspective, and then understand that Abbott Laboratories is a for-profit company. Believe that. Believe that, don't you? And so they want to sell me, they want to teach me things in order for the profit of the company. Now, that's not shady by any means, but the doctors are seeing a different perspective. So I remember like just really vividly remembering like, okay, there's two sides here. There's two perspectives. There's a for-profit company, and then there's the doctor side of things who are seeing things that could be somewhat similar, but they have their own perspective. And so all my doctors, I would just be like, this is what they're teaching me. This is what the last doctor said. Like, is that what your perspective is? And then I would get a good dialogue and good relationships. And then the nurses were nice. So my pharmaceutical days were going really well. And it was the golden handcuffs. It was the things like, no one's going to leave. You're going to get a company car. You're going to drive around. I think I drove, like, my territory was south of Iowa. So it was Des Moines. That was kind of like the tip of my triangle. Then it goes down to Red Oak or Shenandoah area. So South Iowa. And then all the way over to Fairfield. So the other end of the, like, that's kind of like a triangle. If you know Iowa, you know. The Maharishis. And everything in between. So I never really spent the night, which was such a blessing. But there was times where I like drove through, 2.5 hours out and 2.5 hours back for maybe like 20 minutes that I'd be interacting with people. It was like Zan said, kind of lonely, a lot of windshield time. So, in the course of the 3 years that I worked there, I had to stay on the phone 3 times to see if I had a job the next day because of reorganization, because of generic drugs, all this different stuff. Like Abbott was just trying to figure out, like, do we need the people in Iowa? And if you know Iowa, you know that we're like the insurance capital of the world. So It's a little different here, and I'm sure it was everywhere, but we had to sit down on our phone, like sit down on our desk. We had to come home from talking to the doctors, and we had to sit down and just see, like, do we have a job the next day? Do we not? Is there a reorg happening? Culture wasn't great. But again, it was a kind of a lonely job because, like, my peers, I didn't see them much, but I saw other pharmaceutical reps from other companies far more than I saw my own team. But I made it through the first two, and the last time, our whole team got shellacked. So I got cut, my whole team got cut, or I shouldn't say all, but most of them, except for like 2, got cut. There was, I think, 7 at the time, got cut. And then my boss got cut, his boss got cut. It was a shellacking. Stink. Now I'm without a job. Not great. I have a new family. I have 2 kids at that time. And I'm like, well, what do I do? So, do what I know best. I called Steve Chapman again. It's like, Steve, let me take you out to lunch. Took him out to lunch, and I said, hey, Steve, this is what I'm good at. This is what I'm not good at. I know myself now, a little bit different. He's like, I've always loved working with you. Like, I just see so much potential in you. At that time, he moved on. He retired from ITA Group, and he moved to Ruan Transportation, actually, of all places. And he said, you're not a logistic guy, or else I would see if there's a place on our team for you, but you're not that guy. And he's like, you know what you should do? You should go talk to Greg Shireman at at Wellmark. He's like, you got a health background. Now I'm like, okay, that's interesting. I was selling against Wellmark and the generic drugs. And now I'm like, could be working for them? Weird. But all right, that's what I got. So I go talk to Joe Garcia. I love this guy. Like, it was just awesome. So Steve Chapman introduced me to Joe Garcia via email. We go out, all right, go hang out with him at Wellmark downtown, beautiful building. And Joe Garcia just got hired recently. And he was like, listen, I got a spot for you, man. Like, we can rock. He's like, you can drop a bomb in the sales department at 3:00 on Friday and no one would get hurt because they're all gone. Like, the work ethic is just not what we need. He's like, this is exactly what I need. Yet, this is a big ship that's not easily turning. So he's like, give me a couple months. And in the meantime, you should go talk to Greg Shireman at Delta Dental. Because I don't want to lose you, but I also know that you need a job. And he's like, I want to help. And he's like, I love your attitude. You're not depressed. You're just kind of like, you're honest and you're enthusiastic. That sounds about right. And so he's like, you should go talk to Greg Shireman. Okay, great. So before I go to see Greg Shireman, Joe Garcia, I put an email together like, hey, I think Joe Garcia reached out to Greg Shireman, I think via text, that's how close they were, or maybe an email, and attached me. We figured out a time. But I remember writing email to Steve Chapman and Joe Garcia, just saying like, hey, thanks for your time. I'm super excited to meet Greg. So I go see Greg. We have a great conversation. We talked about depths of like things that like you don't normally talk about. So like kindred spirits, this guy's awesome. At the end of that, he goes, hey, I don't want to lose you, but have you talked to the guy over at ITA Group? His name's Tom Mahoney. He's like, you seem like a good fit there. And I was like, interesting you say that. I might as well go talk to Tom. So then I would write an email to Steve Chapman, Joe Garcia, Greg Shireman, and Tom Mahoney. So I get to go hang out with Tom Mahoney again, which is kind of like full circle. Now he's the president and CEO of ITA Group. So fun to talk to him. And I knew that probably wasn't going to fit, be honest. Like I left that company and now I'm kind of off to who knows what I'm doing, but I just knew I didn't really want to go back to there and didn't want to travel much. That's all they do really. And so had a great conversation with him and really just kind of kept like going through this like Rolodex of amazing people. And at the end of it, I would write emails. I'd write emails back to the whole team. And then if I wanted to go talk to somebody else, like I would attach everybody on the team and just say, here's the next person I'm talking to. So they had incentivized they were just motivated to watch me succeed. Like they were in it with me, which was really cool. So I think at the end of that, they weren't meeting with Phillip. They were like, who is this guy? And how does he know these people? Because they were awesome people. And still to this day, I talk to them. So, but I not once so I was 11 months without a job. So you need to know that 11 months without a job, not once did I apply for anything. And I never filled out I think I had a resume, but I never filled out an application. I never sent it in to some place I didn't know. I was just talking to people and seeing if there was a good fit for me. Because I really did want a career. Okay, so this is where God comes in, because there was a couple days, and I would say out of 11 months, a couple days is a really good thing, that I was like, this isn't working. And I got to provide for my family. It was dark. But, okay, this is getting longer, so I'll try to speed this thing up. So I ended up just praying, like, Lord, I don't need 3 different doors open. I just need one door. So just slam every other door. I'm not that smart. I can't figure it out which one you want me to go to. I just need one door. So in his wisdom and how much he loves me, I ended up getting a pharmaceutical job. And one thing that I would say, I didn't say this already, but I didn't want to go back into pharmaceuticals, because as much and how good of a job that was, it was the golden handcuffs, something you'll never leave. It's there, right? And it's like, it was just safe. And I just didn't want to go back to that, because I was a number. I wasn't like a person. Like, it wasn't like, okay, this is the reason why we want to keep you. No, it was like the whole team in the Des Moines area, we just need to cut them. And they didn't know who they were cutting. That didn't feel great to me. And I didn't want to go back to that. But after 11 months, you do what you got to do. And I had a company, a pharmaceutical company, reach out to me and say, hey, like, you know, we've heard that you're really good. We'd love you on the team. I would say, just so everybody, like, I did talk to a headhunter. The headhunter said, well, we don't really work with pharmaceutical reps. And I'm like, well, that's weird. Why? He's like, well, because all they do is really cater food. And I was like, huh, that's interesting. So I did kind of reprimand the guy. I was like, listen, don't tell me what I am or what I'm not. Like, that might be your experience, but that doesn't mean all of them are like that. But anyway, just moved on from him. And get a call from this. It was Forest Pharmaceuticals, and wanted me to fly out to Chicago or do like some kind of interview here. And then I flew out to Chicago. Turned out there was another person also that was the competitor of Forest, and he was also applying for the job. So my only closing thing, the only thing I had was like, listen, if you're looking for like credibility, I have that. Like, I don't have disease state knowledge. I don't know what, but I can learn. But I am pretty good at like credibility. So if I were a doctor and there was a pharmaceutical rep that was selling my competitor one day and came to me the next day and said, hey, no, I'm actually working for this company now. Like, I don't know if I would really listen to him if I was a doctor. I was like, but if you're looking for disease state knowledge, like, that's your guy. And he's like, well, that's kind of what we're looking for. I was like, okay, then let's just fly me back to Des Moines now. We had a good conversation. We laughed a lot. But turned out they chose the other guy. So I was depressed. Let's be honest. That was one of those days. I'm flying back from Des Moines, or from Chicago to Des Moines, thinking like, what am I going to do to provide for my family? I touch down. There's a message on my answer machine, and it's from a guy, Mike Niedert was his name, from Principal Financial Group. And he said, hey, he's like, heard about your resume. Would love to have you come and interview. Okay, here's something about Principal Financial Group that you might not want to hear. They'll take anybody who can fog a mirror. So I went through the whole interview process. Oh, I got hired. Oh man, there's a stipend for 3 months, which was actually helpful at the time, candidly. And I remember, like, the reason why I said yes, one, I didn't know about finances at the time, but I did think to myself, man, like, I've never really talked to a financial services guy that I liked, or woman. Like, I just never talked to those people. So I wonder what this will be like. And they said, we have the best training program to get you from 0 to 60 the quickest. I was like, well, I need that. So this will be a good fit. All right. So go into intensive, studying for another test, and then do extensive training. And I remember very quickly, they asked me to write down 200 family and friends' names. This is how they do that in the industry, or they used to. And then after you do that, that's the people that you have to call on to try to sell them new products that you know about. And they train you, right? They're training. This is what I got out of it. This is probably not all of it. This is not doing it justice, but here's what I got out of it. Go call your family and friends. See how much they're saving every month. Kill one of them off, like they don't come back from work, sell them life insurance with the savings that they have in their pocket. Like, I was like, oh my gosh, like, I didn't want to talk to myself, let alone my family and friends. But that was the deal. To get the stipend, you had to go call your family, friends. You had to have meetings. I'm telling you, friends, I had the most meetings set, I think, ever in the history of their training module. And I didn't sell one thing. And they were like, what are you doing wrong, Phillip? Like, are you getting them to cry? Are you getting them, all this stuff? And I was like, yeah, I'm trying. That's not true. I remember sitting down with my family and friends and was like, don't buy anything from anybody. This industry is shady business. And like the things that I'm seeing and I'm learning, like it makes it even more convoluted and more hazy and scary and dumb. Like, don't buy anything from anybody. And I remember a lot of them were like, are you sure that's what you're supposed to be saying? I'm like, no, but I haven't figured it out yet. And I don't feel good about just selling you something because they tell me to sell something. Like, Principal Financial Group is a for-profit company. They train me in order to go out to you to sell you something. Like, you are my doctor, and Abbott Laboratories is Principal Financial Group. It all just started clicking for me. And what I need to do is just educate you on your options if you need options. If not, have a great day. And what I found was a lot of people and my credibility went way through the roof. Like, okay, he's not going to just try to sell us stuff. But if I'm being honest, I do have questions about my finances. I have questions about where we're going. Like, are we going to get there on time? Like, all these things that I think financial advisor can help you with. But I didn't even ask him for that. I was just like, don't buy anything from anybody. Like, just hunker down here. And that was when I met Brian Dewhurst. So Brian Dewhurst and I were in part of an investment club up in Ames, Iowa. There was a couple, I think 5 or 6, and they were looking for investments to purchase in order for the whole group to kind of like succeed. And there was a property and casualty person in this group. I'm still friends with him. And then a realtor. And then there was a banker. And then there was Brian. And then there was Phillip. And so I think the realtors came with an investment idea and was like, hey, I just have this 20-plex, like this is great. It'll cash flow in 5 years. And I'll never forget. Brian was like, okay, like I get how this is good for you because you get a commission on this huge beat of profit or this real estate property. He's like, I see how you get paid. And there was also an accountant, in their group. He's like, I see how you get paid, accountant, because you're going to do the books for them every year. Okay. He's like, I see how you get paid to the insurance guy because you're going to write the property and casualty with it. And then there was another person, I can't remember who, but I know how you get paid because of this and whatever. And then he looked at me, he's like, I don't see how he gets paid, and I don't see how I get paid for 5 years. And I was like, that's actually brilliant. And so I'm like, what does he do? And he's like, well, he's in financial services. I was like, well, I'm kind of in that too. So Brian and I met, and he was basically like, it's not working for me. Like I know all this knowledge. I just don't know how to sell it. And I'm like, I don't know the knowledge, but I know how to sell. So let's combine, let's work together, and then let's go help people. And I have the relationships. So that's what we did. And we did that for, a long time. I think 10 years. I'm going to say 10 years. I don't know if it was, but it was close. We started Uncommon Wealth Partners, and it was so great to have a partner. And then, like as a lot of partnerships do, I felt like we were just kind of going in 2 different directions. And so out of the 2, I thought for sure Brian would be buying Phillip out of Uncommon Wealth Partners, but that's not what God had, right? God had Phillip running this bad boy. So this is where we're at today. I get to hang out with some of my closest friends, some people I never knew before, and I get to help give them wisdom and guidance, look at their perspective a little uncommonly, and help them figure out what they want to do with their life, help them use money as a tool in order for them to live a fulfilling life, help them to rely on other people and to serve other people and impact other people. It's pretty sweet. And so that's exactly how I got here today. Long story, but I feel like you can see the peaks, the valleys. You can see how God's used all my good and bad experiences to kind of formulate who I am today, help shape and mold me. And I know that he's doing that for you. And that's one of the reasons why I love my job so much. It's because I get to see all the different ways that God provides for us in unique ways. and gifts us in unique ways that we can glorify him or we can glorify each other. However you want to do it, we can serve other people. But man, that's where I'm at. And that was my story. So I hope that you do the due diligence to either talk about your story from somebody to somebody, you podcast it or you write it down, because it's just encouraging. It's encouraging for me. It's helped motivate me to just continue on this path. This is where I think God has me at this stage, and I couldn't be happier. So that's my whole story. This was a long podcast. I'm sorry. So you've been listening to the Uncommon Wealth Podcast. Until next time, have a good day.
That's all for this episode, brought to you by Uncommon Wealth Partners. Be sure to visit uncommonwealth.com to learn more about our services. Don't miss an episode as we introduce you to inspiring people who are actively pursuing an uncommon life.